Hello everyone, my name is Charlene and I'm a PhD student at the University of Wisconsin-Madison studying neuroscience through the Neuroscience Training Program. Neuroscience is the study of the nervous system, which includes the brain, spinal cord, and nerves. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about neuroanatomy, specifically brain structure and function. And for that, I have here a real human brain. Now, normally, when we think about the brain, we picture it being pink or reddish, and that's because in our skulls, brains are constantly supplied with blood, which provides oxygen. Our brains use about 20% of the total blood and oxygen produced by our bodies, or needed by our bodies. The average human brain weighs about 3 pounds, and the brain is a spongy mass of fat and protein made up of two main types of cells called neurons and glia. There are many billions of each type of cells, with trillions of connections between them. The outermost part of the brain, called the cortex, you might notice that it has some grooves, which are called sulci, and deeper lines, which are called gyri. These foldings maximize the total surface area of the cortex, allowing the brain to be packed to capacity. If the brain were smoother, then there would be less space to fit neurons. Some of these gyri, or lines, serve as landmarks that divide the brain in different regions that we call lobes, and there are 4 of them. First, we have the frontal lobe. Like the name suggests, it's located at the front and it's right behind the forehead. And it's actually the most highly developed in humans compared to other animals, but it's not fully formed until we reach the age of 25. This region is important for activities such as decision making, planning, memory, voluntary action, and personality. But how do we know this? Well, in the past, one of the ways doctors and scientists learned about the function of a region was after a lesion occurred in the area. For example, there is a man called Phineas Gage who was a construction worker, and he had a tamping iron go right through his brain, specifically his frontal lobe. He lived, but his personality was changed, and it's almost like he became a completely different person. And that was important for understanding the role of frontal lobe in personality. Now we have other sophisticated methods such as magnetic resonance imaging or MRI that help us see brain activity and infer brain function. The second lobe is called the parietal lobe. It's right here, and it's at the crown of the head, and it's important for integrating information from different senses. We also have the occipital lobe all the way in the back of the brain, right here, and the information for visual system, it's processed at the occipital lobe, so it travels all the way from over here in our eyes to the back of our heads. Last but not least, we have the temporal lobes right near the ears. They're important for memory formation and storage, language, and emotions such as fear. Just like the frontal lobes, we first knew about the role of the temporal lobes in memory because of a lesion. There was a man called Henry. People often call him patient HM, and he had a severe case of epilepsy, which had resulted from a traumatic brain injury. A doctor thought that it would be good to surgically remove the part of the brain where his seizures were originating, causing the epilepsy, and that happened to be in the middle temporal lobe. After this region was removed, patient HM lost his ability to retain new information for a long time. Moving away from the cortex, hanging out at the back of the brain is the cerebellum. It's a cauliflower-shaped structure whose name means little brain. The cerebellum is important for the control of movement and posture, and it's key for those finely coordinated movements that you can do without overthinking but require some practice. A few examples are sports and learning musical instruments. At the beginning, you might not be great at them, but you improve with practice and might reach a point in which you don't really have to think about your next move. Or texting, for example. If I ask you where the letter K is in a keyboard, maybe it'll take you some seconds, but most likely it won't take you long to find when you're writing a text. That's thanks to cerebellum-based motor learning. Moving on to this tail-like structure right here, it's called the brainstem, and it connects the brain to the spinal cord, allowing the brain to send and receive signals to and from the body. The brainstem has several structures that control many vital basic bodily functions, such as breathing, swallowing, and the regulation of blood pressure. Brain regions don't typically work in isolation, but they communicate with each other through pathways called white matter tracts, which this model here shows more clearly. Those lighter regions are called white matter tracts, and the darker areas are gray matters. Through those tracts, the white matter tracts, message travels from one region of the brain to the other, from one hemisphere to the other, but also from the cortex into deeper structures of the brain and vice versa. So what are those deeper structures? The brain is divided into two hemispheres, which we call left and right. If you open the brain, you will notice here that the cortex looks intact and that it's even when the brain is cut in half. That's because the one place that the left cortex connects to the right cortex is this white matter tract called corpus callosum. Actually, we can better see it in this model right here. This would be the corpus callosum. Right below the corpus callosum, there is a chamber called lateral ventricle, and that chamber holds a liquid called cerebrospinal fluid, or CSF for short. That liquid circulates around the brain for three purposes: provide cushioning, circulate nutrients, and remove waste. It makes the brain kind of float in your skull, and it protects it from potential damage that can result from sudden movements. Deep inside the brain, we can find other regions such as the hippocampus, that's important for learning and memory, and the amygdala, that's involved in fear response. Many times, brain regions are named after something they resemble. For example, the hippocampus is named after a seahorse, and the amygdala is named like that because it's almond-shaped. The thalamus, right around here, is the relay center for sensory information to the cortex, and the hypothalamus, right below the thalamus, plays a role in controlling behaviors such as hunger, thirst, sleep, and secretion of hormones. Many times, these regions work as a team to form systems such as the limbic system, which includes the hippocampus, amygdala, and hypothalamus, and it's in charge of our emotions. You might have heard in the past that humans use only 10% of their brains, but that's actually a myth. We use practically every part of our brains, and brain regions can be active even in our sleep. In summary, we learned that the brain is divided in 4 lobes that play different roles but communicate with each other through white matter tracts to allow us to perform vital activities such as breathing, eating, but also learn new things and have unique personalities that distinguish us from others. So make sure to take good care of your brains.